ॐ परतत्त्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्णसमाज्ञया यो धर्मस्थापनरतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. We are studying Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga, and in that the third chapter, Maya and Illusion, and Swamiji has shown how our life is based upon contradictions. Now, one of the ways of this contradiction, Swamiji was showing in the last paragraph, was that our ideas are shifting. We are not constant in our ideas. And so, what appears good today does not appear good tomorrow. And in that, Swamiji was giving his own personal experience. We read back from that last portion of the last para. What I thought to be good yesterday, I do not think to be good now. When I look back upon my life and see what were my ideals at different times, I find this to be so. At one time, my ideal was to drive a strong pair of horses. At another time, I thought, if I could make a certain kind of sweetmeat, I should be perfectly happy. Later I imagined that I should be entirely satisfied if I had a wife and children and plenty of money. Today, I laugh at all these ideals as mere childish nonsense. So, these ideas, including this wife and children and happiness, are childish nonsense. Swamiji has put them in a sequence for us to understand. We can understand that how childish is the ideal that I want to drive a pair of horses. How childish is the idea that I want to make some sweetmeat. Not even eat, And so in that series, Swamiji has put that what is the ideal for 99% people in this world, that I will be satisfied if I have a wife and children and I shall be happy. And we found that these people find it very late that this is not the ideal. But Swamiji, before doing that, has found that it is childish. Now, proceeding on these lines, what Swamiji is telling us now. The Vedanta says there must come a time when we shall look back and laugh at the ideals which make us afraid of giving up our individuality. So Swamiji has discussed that individuality is something constant factor and we are changing. So we don't have an individuality and yet we want to stick to our individuality. Now when the growth comes, when the development comes, when the evolution comes, we shall find that this is a childish laughing stock. That is the bold statement Swamiji is making. After quoting his own example of riding horses or making sweets or marrying wife and all that, Swamiji comes to that statement that people do not want to give up their individuality. But if there is real growth inside, that idea also will be seen as a childish, laughing idea. And now he is showing that individuality. Each one of us wants to keep this body for an indefinite time. That is what all the yoga and hatha yoga comes to. Thinking we shall be very happy. But there will come a time when we shall laugh at this idea. Do you want some example? Those who have read the Mahabharata, they know that there is a person who was cursed to live this life eternally. There was Dronacharya's son, Ashwathama, and he wanted to finish off the world by his Brahmastram. And Shri Krishna saved that. And he had a special pearl in his head that was also drawn out. And then Shri Krishna says, I curse you not to die. And people say, even today, if you find a person with disheveled hair, absolutely dry looking person, and he comes to you and begs for some oil, you should know that he is Ashwatthama. So, eternal life will end like this. I told you some other stories that day. Arnold Toynbee that we'll have to fill income tax returns every year. But this is another case. So keeping the body longer, and if it becomes old, it will become old, and then can we keep it? So, but this is our idea today. And that is the idea in going to heaven or anywhere. We want to keep this. Body means this personality. We don't want to change our ideas. The biggest attachment a man has, biggest attachment, is not man to woman or money, man to his own body and his ideas. That is the biggest attachment. Very difficult, impossible to give up almost. If somebody asks us to give 10 rupees or $1,000 we can give, but change your ideas, it will be very difficult. But if the evolution comes, we should laugh at this. Swamiji is showing that. Each one of us wants to keep this body for an indefinite time, thinking we shall be very happy. But there will come a time when we shall laugh at this idea. Now, if such be the truth, we are in a state of hopeless contradiction. Neither existence nor non-existence. On any level, we want to keep the body or we don't want to keep the body. We want to keep our mind or we don't want to keep our mind. Existence or non-existence. Neither misery nor happiness. The duel of misery and happiness is one of the characteristics of this world and its life. If we are happy one moment, we will have to get a misery next. If we are miserable, we may sometimes get happy. But how long to be tossed about in this? But a mixture of them. What then? Now, next point. What then is the use of Vedanta and all other philosophies and religions? If this is the case, if Maya is contradictions in life, then what will Vedanta do? What all religions are trying to do? If our state in the world is this caught between duels, then what will this do? And above all, what is the use of doing good work? What is the use of doing good work? I will tell a story here. My experience, I was in Chandigarh and we had started a mobile medical van and we had publicized it. Now one NRI, Indian, came from England and he asked me, what are your plans so that the health problems of the India in general can be solved? What is your plan for solving the health problems of the whole Indians? I folded my hands and said, that is not the way we think. We can never do that. Swami will explain why we are doing good work. We shall do what we can. Here in Chandigarh and around Chandigarh, if we can help some people for getting some help on the medical grounds, that is enough for us. We are doing work for our own improvement, not to improve the condition of the whole India, which is not possible. So, the way to think is, Swamiji is saying, why are we doing good work? This is a question that comes to the mind. If it be true that you cannot do good without doing evil, and whenever you try to create happiness, there will always be misery, people will ask you, what is the use of doing good? If doing good itself involves some evil, then why are you doing good? The answer is, in the first place, Swamiji is giving two different answers. on this problem of doing good. What is the doing good? The answer is in the first place, that means first point, that we must work for lessening misery, for that is the only way to make ourselves happy. A great, great, great truth, relative life, not yet talking of spiritual evolution, but right idea, how I should become happy. Everybody wants happiness. And though happiness is not permanent in this world, but relatively we can be more happy if we try to remove the unhappiness of others. That is the great principle in life. If we try to make ourselves happy, miserable we shall be. If we contract our mind for selfish purposes, miserable we shall be. But if we try our best to make others happy, we shall be happy. In the spiritual field, lot of experiences are there. In the beginning days of Belur Math or even before in Baranagar Math, there was no electric current. In hot summer, all of them used to sleep in one hall. And there would be a very huge fan. Fan means maybe cloth or something hanging on a bamboo. And some person, if he moves that, a wind will help the others who are sleeping. Now one day, Swami Akhandanji found he can't take rest, nobody can take rest, everybody is sweating and sweating. He thought, let me at least help others. They can sleep at least, if not I. So he sat on one side and moved that fan. And he found that he is feeling cool. The fan is not directly coming on him. The fan is coming on others. But that is a spiritual experience. By trying to fan them, he got happy. He got cool. Now, this is a spiritual principle. Now we say in life, say between husband and wife, if the husband wants to try to keep the wife happy, he shall be happy. Vice versa. Between brothers, friends, society, everywhere. If we try to keep somebody happy and everybody happy other than we shall be happy. There is no other way of happiness, please. The more we think of ourselves, we are contracting our mind, we are contracting our nature of consciousness, and that is the best source of misery. Duryodhana, by tricks and fallacies, he made the Pandavas go to forest. And all the good people started going to forest because they want to talk to and have company with Yudhishthira. And Duryodhana is feeling jealousy. So who is miserable? Duryodhana. So, if you try to give pain to others, you will have pain. If you try to give happiness to others, you will be happy. That we must work for lessening misery, for that is only way to make ourselves happy. Every one of us finds it out sooner or later in our lives. Every one of us finds out sooner or later in our life that the best way to be happy is to try to make others happy. Try to lessen their misery. Even if we cannot make them happy, try to lessen their misery. The bright ones find it out a little earlier and the dull ones a little later. So the wisdom lies in this. If one can understand this early in life, he shall be more happy. And if we can understand this after getting knocked about quite a bit in the old age, it is almost of no use. So, a great principle, Swamiji is enumerating it and telling us that every one of us finds it out. sooner or later in our lives. The bright ones find it out a little earlier and the dull ones a little later. But then what happens? The dull ones pay very dearly for the discovery and the bright ones less dearly. That means after suffering some misery only we find out. But the dull ones, they do not find out quickly. So after great misery they shall find out. That is all the wisdom, relative wisdom in this world. In the second place, that is what I was talking about, our Chandigarh Medical. In the second place, we must do our part because that is the only way of getting out of this life of contradiction. First step is we try to help others. That makes our mind expansive, that makes our mind purer, our desires get less and less, and then we get the knowledge how to go beyond Maya. That is the connection. The connection between good works and be permanently happy is this, that if we try to help others, we shall be relatively happy is one thing. Our mind will expand. Our mind will become purer. Desires will gradually become less and less and less. Example, every monk of the Ramakrishna Mission is the example. Every brahmachari of the Ramakrishna Mission is an example. The more sincerely they work for alleviating the misery of others, the more spiritually evolved they become. And so, that is the second point, that if we want to evolve spiritually, ultimately going beyond Maya, the way is to make our mind ready. Both the forces of good and evil will keep the universe alive for us. So universe is not going to change. In Karma Yoga, Swamiji had told the universe is like the tail of a dog. It will always remain curly. You may try to straighten it. The moment you leave it, it will become curly. So the universe is not going to improve much. Whatever improvement can be done also is done by these people who try to help others unselfishly. But that universe will remain like that. Until we awake from our dreams and give up the building of mud pies. So this whole life, which is a contradiction in terms, Swamiji compares like a dream experience. We are not awakened to our real nature, which Swamiji has declared in the second lecture on the Kathopanishad, the real nature of man. Unless we wake up to that real nature, our life is a dream. We are sleeping to the reality and we are living. So that is dream-like experience. And we have no control over our dreams. But if we do proper work, our mind shall get purified, we shall wake up one day and give up the building of mud pies. So, all our houses, earning money, trying for happiness, Swamiji compares with building mud pies. How they will make us happy. That lesson we shall have to learn. Two things. First he says that man learns it, but after a great trouble, dull ones. Now he says we will have to learn it. If earlier we learn, the better we will be. That lesson we shall have to learn. And it will take a long, long time to learn it because our habits do not change, because our mind does not change, because people do not want to change their ideas. So it takes a longer time. That is the dullness. The brightest intellects in this world are very dull in this respect because they do not want to change their ideas, because they are trying to cling to their selfishness, which is a self-defeating purpose. Now, philosophically, Swamiji describes this wonderful phenomena. Attempts have been made in Germany to build a system of philosophy on the basis that the infinite has become the finite. They understand that the reality is infinite. Call it God or Brahman or don't call it anything. Infinite is the nature of everybody, but it has become finite because expression through this body and mind always makes it finite. Such attempts are also made in England, and the analysis of the position of these philosophers is this, that the infinite is trying to express itself in the universe. So every person is trying to express through his personality the infinite in this world, and that there will come a time, their philosophy, and that there will come a time when the infinite will succeed in doing so. A false optimism in the present state of the worldly life. It is all very well, and we have used the words infinite and manifestation and expression and so on. But philosophers naturally ask for a logical fundamental basis for the statement that the finite can fully express the infinite. How can infinite be expressed in finite? That is the logical question. Hoping without any rationality is a different thing. And so, I told you a story the other day that the Punjabi boy from America, his father died in road accident, and he says, we have developed cars with cushions and all that. Will it solve the problem? He said, no, people drive faster and I will drive again. That is the life. So, the absolute and the infinite, absolute means that which does not depend upon anything else. Nirapeksha is the Sanskrit word for absolute. Nirapeksha is the Sanskrit word for absolute here. It does not expect anything else to make it happy. That is absolute. And that is possible only in the infinite. So the absolute and the infinite can become this universe only by limitation. The absolute reality, Brahman, becomes this universe only when it gets limited through time, space and causation. Infinite appears to be in this body through time, space and causation. Everything must be limited that comes through the senses or through the mind. We are trying to express the infinitude through our senses and our mind. And whatever comes through mind and senses comes through this prism of time, space and causation. Mind limits them like this. Indriyas will limit it still further because Indriyas can hardly express anything. And for the limited to be unlimited is simply absurd. Mind and Indriyas being limited, they cannot express the infinity, they cannot become infinite. The very thought is absurd and can never be. The Vedanta, on the other hand, see, same thing, German philosophers say infinity is trying to express itself and one day it will succeed. Swamiji has shown that it cannot succeed. Now, how the Vedanta deals with this problem? The Vedanta, on the other hand, says that it is true that the absolute or the infinite is trying to express itself in the finite. That is, the whole world struggle is like this. Everybody has infinite as its reality. And everybody is trying to express it in his own life. That is true. But there will come a time when it will find that it is impossible. Not that there will come a time when it will happen. There will come a time when we will find that it is impossible. Finite body, finite mind cannot express the infinity. To find this is our struggle. To find this requires wisdom. And it will then have to beat a retreat. And this beating a retreat means renunciation, which is the real beginning of religion. No question of whether you are a householder or a sannyasi. The attempt at trying to express the infinity through family life, social life, through our mind, through the mind of all together. We'll have to understand that it does not happen, it is impossible. Then what we shall do? We shall not try to do that. We shall try to go back to our real nature. All the progress in this world is taking us away from the center. More and more, a young man, I remember some 40, 50 years back in Pune, there was a retreat, and before that one young boy engineer, he said, isn't it true, Swamiji, that more progress is happening, more we are going away from the center? I said, yes, that is what is happening. And so, beating the retreat means going back to trying to get our own real nature by giving up the attempt at expression to infinity. Impossible it is. Which is the real beginning of religion. The real beginning of religion is to stop our attempt of expressing our reality through senses and mind. And when we stop this attempt and try to go back to our real nature, that is the beginning of religion. Very important point. Whether you are a householder or a sannyasi, whether man or woman, this is the truth. And Swamiji says, you have to learn this truth. The dull ones learn late, the wise ones will learn early. Now the difficulty. Nowadays it is very hard even to talk of renunciation. Swamiji's time, more so today. All the time it is like that. It was said of me in America that I was a man who came out of a land that had been dead and buried for 5,000 years and talked of renunciation. India they looked upon like that. The land had died and buried. And from there this person comes and talks of renunciation. So says perhaps the English philosopher. Yet it is true that that is the only path to religion. That is the only path to religion. Renounce householders. Sri Ramakrishna says they have to renounce mentally. And the sannyasi renounces both mentally and physically. So his path becomes easier. But the householders also have to renounce mentally the attachment to family, the attachment to the worldly life, the attachment to intellectual pursuits, the attachment to anything which we hope for happiness where, that we have to give up. We have to try to manifest our real nature. That is the religion. Yet it is true that it is the only path to religion. Renounce and give up. What did Christ say? Why Swamiji has brought that? Because the listeners are almost all Christians, number one. Number two, Swamiji always derives from the universality of religion. And so he says, what did Christ say? He that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. My sake means spiritual. My sake means God. My sake means infinity. If we lose our life, that means little small self. If we lose that, we will gain infinity. Mahapurush Maharaj used to talk in a beautiful language. If you want to become full, try to be zero. The moment you become zero, you will become full. That is what he said. So reduce his ambitions. Again and again did he preach renunciation as the only way to perfection, again and again. One statement Swamiji has given. One rich person became somewhat attracted and he went to Christ and said, I want to follow you. What shall I do? He said, sell your property, give all the money to the poor and then follow me. The man became Murus and did not come forward. There comes a time when the mind awakes from this long and dreary dream. Dreary. This dream we are pulling some or other in this life and it is long, unending, but a time will come when the mind awakes. Now if you can understand, then we can awake earlier. That is the whole difference. The child gives up its play and wants to go back to its mother. That is the example. A child is busy playing. The mother is calling him, come and have your food. The child does not care. But when the hunger comes, then gives up the play and wants to go back to the mother. It finds the truth of the statement, desire is never satisfied by the enjoyment of desires. It only increases the more as fire when butter is poured upon it. Fire is burning. We put butter in it. Fire burns more. It will not be quenched in that way. So if you feed your desires, they will increase only. They will not go down. And as Swamiji said in the other day, that if the satisfaction comes in the arithmetic progression, the desires will grow in geometric progression. This is true of all sense enjoyments, not only of all intellectual enjoyments. Some people find delight in the research, mathematics, physics, engineering, what and what not. And they will find it is limited at some point, they will find. Of all the enjoyments of which, this is true of all sense enjoyments, of all intellectual enjoyments, and of all the enjoyments of which the human mind is capable. Maybe art or maybe music, they find it does not give us infinity. They are nothing. They are within Maya. Why they are nothing? There is a contradiction in terms. The infinite trying to express through finite, which is not possible. They are nothing. They are within Maya. Within this network beyond which we cannot go. Beyond which we cannot go. We may run therein through infinite time and find no end. And whenever we struggle to get a little enjoyment, a mass of misery falls upon us. How awful is this? Swamiji is trying to wake us up. And when I think of it, I cannot but consider that this theory of Maya, this statement that it is all Maya, is the best and only explanation. Contradiction in terms, and so when we understand, we want to go beyond that. That is the explanation. Within this, you can run infinite time. Nothing will happen. What an amount of misery there is in this world. And if you travel among various nations, you will find that one nation attempts to cure its evil by one means and another by another. Example, the very same evil has been taken up by various races and attempts have been made in various ways to check it, yet no nation has succeeded in making people happy. If it has been minimized at one point, a mass of evil has been crowded at another point. Swamiji gives a beautiful example. Thus it goes. The Hindus, to keep up a high standard of chastity in the race, have sanctioned child marriage. During Swamiji's time, child marriage was prevalent till the government made a law and all that. Why? What is the logic behind it? To keep the chastity of the race, which in the long run has degraded the race. Physically, it is very weakening, child marriage. Lot of contractions come that it is race decays. At the same time, I cannot deny that this child marriage makes the race more chaste. That cannot be denied. And that is why Indians were much more chaste than the whole world. What would you have? If you want the nation to be more chaste, you weaken men and women physically by child marriage. On the other hand, are you in England any better off? Let me tell you a story here. Incident. In Chandigarh, there was a great Sanskrit scholar, Dr. Angiras, and Government of India had deputed him to Czechoslovakia for teaching Sanskrit. And he went there with his family. And one day, he, wife and children were just going to walk in the street. Some other couple, Czechoslovak couple, met them. And they are asking, is this your first wife? They are asking the wife, is this your first husband? They were shocked to hear this. Then the next question, how many years you have been living together? They were still shocked. So idea you understand? They live together for some time, they get bored or something happens and they want to marry somebody else. Now in the absence of child marriage, what happens? So, on the other hand, are we in England any better off? No, because chastity is the life of a nation. Do you not find in history that the first death sign of a nation has been unchastity? When that has entered, the end of the race is in sight. Where shall we get a solution of these miseries then? No, along with child marriage, other thing. Now it has become an interesting topic these days. If parents select husbands and wives for their children, then this evil is minimized. Arranged marriage they call it. The daughters of India are more practical than sentimental. But very little of poetry remains in their lives. That is true. The romance, the poetry of loving and then marrying, that has gone from their life because the parents arranged their life. Questions are raised these days in newspapers and media. How many days it takes for a married couple to love each other? Nonsensical question. Again, if people select their own husbands and wives, that does not seem to bring much happiness. The Indian woman is generally very happy. There are not many cases of quarreling between husband and wife. Comparative. On the other hand, in the United States, where the greatest liberty obtains, the number of unhappy homes and marriages is large. Unhappiness is here, there and everywhere. Again, Maya. Arranged marriage will limit your mind, and if you select your own husband and wife, you will not be happy. Where do you go? What does it show? That after all, not much happiness has been gained by all these ideas. We all struggle for happiness, and as soon as we get a little happiness on one side, on the other side there comes unhappiness. Shall we not work to do good then? So the problem in the beginning was why we are doing good. And in between, Swamiji saw this. Shall we not work to do good then? Yes, with more zest than ever. What is zest? Or zeal? There are three words: patience, perseverance, and zeal or zest. That means perseverance with happiness, that is zest. But what this knowledge will do for us is to break down our fanaticism. That means this will solve, I told you about that NRI, this will solve the problem of the whole world. That is the fanatic idea. I shall evolve, I shall gain, I shall spiritually evolve. That is the correct idea. But this will change the society is fanaticism. The Englishman will no more be a fanatic and curse the Hindu. Englishman says Hindu's habits are all wrong and all that. We shall change it, and that does not make the Hindu happy, and the Englishman gets frustrated out of his fanaticism. I will give a great example. In the Education Bill for India, passed in 1836 by the effort of Lord Macaulay, he wrote in that, I will make the Bengalis forget Kali in 30 years. I will make the Bengalis forget Kali in 30 years. Now 200 years have gone, almost. Have the Bengalis forgotten Kali? The Christians say that our idea has changed. They used to call God as Father in heaven. They said that is English translation. In the original we find the word is equal to parents, not father. So who has changed? Whose ideas have changed? So this is fanaticism. He will have to respect, he will learn to respect the customs of different nations. There will be less of fanaticism and more of real work. Fanatics cannot work. They waste 3/4 of their energy. Now we have the biggest example of fanaticism called the terrorism. Their religion says that all should become Muslims or they should be killed. Has it brought any happiness anywhere in the world? It is the level-headed, calm, practical man who works. So the power to work will increase from this idea that we cannot change the world, but we will grow by trying to help others. We will be at peace, at rest, and work with zest. Knowing that this is the state of things, there will be more patience. The sight of misery or of evil will not be able to throw us off our balance and make us run after shadow. So after all, the whole world is a shadow. Therefore, patience will come to us, knowing that the world will have to go on in its own way. If, for instance, all men have become good, the animals will have, in the meantime, evolved into men and will have to pass through the same state, and so with the plants. But only one thing is certain, the might. Now Swamiji is coming to the other side. Ultimately, everybody will have to go back to infinity. The sooner we learn, the better. But only one thing is certain, the mighty river is rushing towards the ocean, and all the drops that constitute the stream will in time be drawn into that boundless ocean. So in this life, with all its miseries and sorrows, its joys and smiles and tears, one thing is certain, that all things are rushing towards their goal, and it is only a question of time when you and I and plants and animals and every particle of life that exists must reach the infinite ocean of perfection, must attain to freedom, to God. So the ultimate he has expressed in 3 different words. infinite ocean of perfection, Purnatva. Infinite ocean, because the Purnatva comes only from our infinite nature. So when we are infinite ocean, ocean means all inclusive, infinite ocean of perfection. Second type of idea was this, must attain to freedom. Today we are bound. Young people say, give us freedom. Freedom to, it's not their freedom. Freedom of desires. Freedom of their senses. Freedom of their mind. It is always bound. But we shall get real freedom. Freedom from the senses. Freedom from the limitations of the mind. Freedom from our imperfections. Freedom from our attachment. Freedom from all the bondages produced by our wrong knowledge. So that is the ultimate goal. Everybody is reaching there. Everybody has to reach there. Only you have to learn the lesson. And last expression is God. God is infinity. God is freedom. And we reach God. We become one with Him. We become identified with God. In the final evolution of things, everybody is reaching there. Everybody has to reach there. The sooner we understand, the better. Let me repeat once more that the Vedantic position is neither pessimism nor optimism. He is summarizing his own talk. It does not say that the world is all evil or all good. It says that our evil is of no less value than our good. Another thing in Vedanta. We suffer evil, we learn lessons. So evil has more value than good. It says that our evil is of no less value than our good, and our good of no more value than the evil. They are bound together. This is the world. And knowing this, you work with patience. What for? Why should we work? If this is the state of things, what shall we do? Why not become agnostics? She has brought another position now. Swamiji studied Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher, during his study of Western philosophy. He thought that the Western method, intellectually trying to find the truth, will give me freedom. He came across Immanuel Kant. And it is Kant who has rationally proved in the modern age, though it is known to Vedanta long back, that mind is made of time, space and causation. So everything which comes through the mind is limited by time, space and causation. It is a projection, not the reality. And that is called agnosticism. That means, Kant said, we cannot know the real nature of anything in the world. To talk of God is of no use. You take a particle of dust, and when we try to analyze and try to find out, we are projecting time, space and causation on it. And that which is within time and space and causation can never show us the real nature of that particle of sand. Then what to do? Then says, forget about it. Try to find out how to live in this world better. I call this great escapism. You cannot know the reality you think, and so try to be happy in this world, which is absurd. When Swamiji came to this point, after reading Kant, what happened to him? What happened? He says, if I cannot find truth, I do not want to live. Is life a vegetating life? Ignorant vegetating life like the plants? And in Swamiji nothing is negative. I must find the truth. If my intellect is not allowing me to find the truth, I shall find it by some other means. And that is meditation. This is exactly Maya as described in the Shvatashvatar Upanishad. Let me tell a little about the Shvatashvatar. The first verse says that Brahmavadino vadanti किम कारणम ब्रह्म कुतस्म जाता जीवामकेन कच संप्रतिष्ठा वर्तामहे केन सुखेतरेषु. So the people who are searching the reality come together and they said that what is the cause of this world, why have you come, all that problems. Then they think that has the world come from God? Let us intellectually try to analyze other theories, and whatever theories of the world are there till today, they discuss. Kala, Svabhavo, Niyatir, Yadricha, Bhutani, Yoni, Purusha iti Chintya, Sanyogatesham Natu Atma Bhavat, Atma pi Anisho Sukha Dukkha Hetu. Time, nature, destiny, chance, matter, energy, man. A combination of these does not lead to any unity. And a person, because he himself is suffering and misery, so he cannot be the cause of the world. So I told you that buddhi or reason is very useful in disproving that is wrong. But what happened during this? They found that reason has exhausted itself. Reason has no capacity to show us the nature of the truth. Reason can disprove the wrong thing, but they cannot tell anything about the reality. Then what happened? They took to meditation. And there they found this principle of Maya. Te dhyana yoga anugata apashyan devatma shakti swagunair nigudam. And they found that all these kala sava niyatir yadricha are different aspects of Maya, are the different aspect of the common theory that is statement of fact, and that made them happy. So, Swamiji is telling, the modern agnostics also knows there is no solution of this problem, no getting out of the evil of Maya, as we say in our language. They are telling time, space and causation, we are telling Maya. Therefore, they tell us to be satisfied and enjoy life. Here again is a mistake, a tremendous mistake, a most illogical mistake, and it is this. What do you mean by life? Do you mean only the life of the senses? In this, every one of us differs only slightly from the brutes. I am sure that no one is present here whose life is only in the senses. Then this process, present life, means something more than that. Man does not live by bread alone. Our feelings, thoughts and aspirations are all part and parcel of our life. Our feelings, thoughts and aspirations are all part and parcel of our life. In the first lecture on necessity of religion, Swamiji has shown that the struggle to infinity, the struggle to go beyond senses, is a very much part and parcel of our life, because infinity is our real nature. It will make us struggle. And is not the struggle towards the great ideal, towards perfection, one of the most important components of what we call life? According to the agnostics, we must enjoy life as it is. But this life means, above all, the search after the ideal. The life has this aspiration, search after the ideal. The essence of life is going towards perfection. We must have that. And therefore, we cannot be agnostics or take the world as it appears. It is not real, it appears, and the agnostics want us to take it as it appears. We cannot, because we are aspiring for infinity. The agnostic position takes this life minus the ideal component to be all that exists, and this, the agnostic claims, cannot be reached. Therefore, he must give up this search. This is what is called Maya. We know that the search is beyond, and we don't want to take it. This is the contradiction in terms, and this is Maya. This nature, this universe, Mayam to Prakritim Vidyat, Mayinam to Maheshwar. This nature is contradictory in terms, this is Maya. So Swamiji has shown that this agnosticism is not the practical solution. The solution will have to go beyond. And that going beyond is taught by religions, starts with renunciation. We shall complete that idea next time. Om Paratatve Sada Lino Ramakrishna Samagya Yo Dharma Sthapana Rato Viresham Tam Namamyam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hare Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanam.